ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਦੋਸਤ ਤੇ ਹੋਸਟ ਵਰਿੰਦਰ ਰਖੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਇਮੈਜਨ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ। ਇਮੈਜਨ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਰੋਤੇ, ਜਿੰਨੀ ਵੀ ਆਡੀਅנס ਆ, ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੰਦਰੁਸਤ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ ਤੇ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਮਾਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ। ਨਵੇਂ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਮਨਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਪਹਿਲਾ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਲੋਹੜੀ, ਬੀਤੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਲੋਹੜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਮਨਾਈ ਗਈ। ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਮਨਾਈ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਲੋਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ। ਲੋਹੜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਨਵ ਜੰਮੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ, ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਦੀ, ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਨਵੇਂ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਨੂੰਹ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਵਾਈ। ਅਕਸਰ ਮੈਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਹੜੀ ਵੇਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਧੂਣੀ ਬਾਲ ਕੇ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਾਹਰ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ। ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ, ਤਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਬੜੇ ਹੀ ਧੂਮਧਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਹੜੀ ਮਨਾਈ ਗਈ। ਸਾਡੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਲੋਹੜੀ ਮਨਾਈ ਗਈ। ਦੋਨੇ ਲੋਹੜੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸਫਲਤਾਪੂਰਵਕ ਹੋ ਨਿਬੜੀਆਂ। ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮਲਟੀਕਲਚਰ ਨੂੰ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਤਵੱਜੋ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਰੇਕ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ, ਹਰੇਕ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ, ਹਰੇਕ ਕਲਰ, ਹਰੇਕ ਰੇਸ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਾ। ਜੇ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਜਨਵਰੀ ਦਾ ਮਹੀਨਾ 2025 ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਰੀਕ ਆ 18 ਤਰੀਕ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਦੀ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਆ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਉਹਦੀ ਚਰਚਾ ਐਂਡ ਸਿਖਰ 'ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਸਤੀਫਾ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਰੈਜ਼ਿਗਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਪਦਾ ਉਸੇ ਦਿਨ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਕਰ ਦਾਂਗਾ ਜਿਸ ਦਿਨ ਨਵਾਂ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਲੀਡਰ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਏਗਾ। ਪਾਰਟੀ ਲੀਡਰ ਦੀ ਭਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਮੰਗਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਕੋਲੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਗਏ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਥਗਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਦੇਰ ਲਈ ਸਥਗਿਤ ਹੋਈ ਅਤੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਲੀਡਰ ਅਤੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਦੀ ਭਾਲ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ। ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੀਟੋਬਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ 3 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ MP ਨੇ। ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ-ਨੌਰਥ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ MP ਕੈਵਿਨ ਲੈਮਰੂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਇੱਕ MLA ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਸੰਨ 1988 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਆਪਦੀ ਟਰਮ 2010 ਤੱਕ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦੇ ਆਏ। 5 ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹ MLA ਬਣੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 2010 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2010 ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ। 2010 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ-ਨੌਰਥ ਦੀ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਐਜ਼ ਏ MLA ਫॉर ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਹਨ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਕੈਵਿਨ ਲੈਮਰੂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਇਮੈਜਨ ਟੀਵੀ ਕੈਵਿਨ।
It's my pleasure to be with you here this afternoon. I really appreciate the opportunity to maybe share some thoughts with you and the people that view your show.
Kevin, you're MP from last 25 years.
Well, since 2010, so about 15 years. Yeah. And then prior to that, I was an MLA. And I served in the Manitoba legislature for just under 20 years.
How's your experience as a MLA and MP? What's the difference?
Time management. When you're a member of Parliament, you do a lot of traveling. So you go to Ottawa, and you're always on a standing committee. So when you do that, the biggest challenge is how do you fit everything into your schedule? Between taxis and airports and the plane ride itself, it consumes a lot of time. Then when I'm in standing committees or you're inside the chamber, it consumes even more time. So it's time management by far is the biggest difference. Outside of that, it's different issues. Here you talk a lot about education and the administration of healthcare. In Ottawa, you talk a lot about international affairs, everything from foreign interference to trade issues. It's a wide spectrum of different types of issues, but the principles of Parliament and debate is the same.
My question is, the first question from the audience, they want to know what's the Liberals' next plan? Because last 2-3 years, everybody is focusing on Trudeau.
Yes.
Whatever he making a moves, that goes against him. So how you think, after stepping down, what will happen next?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I think it's important to recognize that the Prime Minister Trudeau was Prime Minister for just over 9 years. And traditionally in Canada, that's usually about as long as a Prime Minister can actually go. So the Liberal Party is now in a transition period between now and March 9. We as a political party will choose the next leader of the Liberal Party, which will then become automatically the Prime Minister, but then we'll be into a federal election shortly thereafter, I'm expecting. So for now, the Liberal Party has got to come up with a way to show Canadians that we can actually change. And if we're successful in being the change that Canadians want, then we might get another chance to win government. If we're not, then they will look at someone like Pierrepoilievre and see the Conservatives as change. But either way, Canadians are going to get change this year.
Recently, this week, Mark Carney announced he will run for presidential race for the party president leader. So do you think he is the best candidate if you compare him with Justin Trudeau?
Well, for me, my choice is actually Chrystia Freeland. And I think it's going to be a very interesting race. And I think there's a lot of contrast. For me, when I think of Chrystia Freeland, I think of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is talking a lot about trade.
Yeah.
And Chrystia Freeland, there's no member in Parliament today, whether in Conservatives or Liberals, that has actually negotiated and signed trade agreements as Chrystia Freeland has. And she's also signed an agreement before with Donald Trump. She's got the experience, and she's got the ability, and she's not going to be bullied by Donald Trump. I see that as a very, very strong positive, because that trading relationship between Canada and the United States is critical to our economy in every way.
But in last budget session, she walked out on the same day. She has to present her first budget of this session.
Yes.
So do you think she is that much capable to take a responsibility in future?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I would argue that Canadians should feel comfortable, in the sense she had taken a principled stand. To be asked to step aside as Minister of Finance so Mark Carney could come in as Minister of Finance, given all the things that she's been able to accomplish, and ultimately a good team player, because there were many things that were taking place that she did not support, but felt it was still, as a team, to try to advance it. And I see that as a positive thing. And a good example of that change or her style, she just recently came out saying that under her leadership, the carbon tax will be gotten rid of. So now you have a leader, or a potential leader of the Liberal Party, and I believe Mark Carney might also be adopting that policy. And it's not to take anything away from Mark Carney. Mark Carney is an excellent candidate, and we'll find out on March 9 which one prevails. Whether it's Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland, and I suspect it will be one of those two, at the end of the day, the greatest challenge is going to be for that leader, that new leader, to show that they can be the change that Canadians want. This way they don't have to vote for the Conservative Party. That's going to be the argument that both, no doubt, will share.
But as a recent survey and if we look to the US, all the surveys shows the Canada or US, they never prefer female prime minister or president. Do you think this time this magic will happen and we will get our first female prime minister?
I believe that the Liberal Party needs to have, and 2025, It's time that we actually get a female leader of the Liberal Party. My daughter, who's local MLA, I've encouraged her to consider running for the leadership of the Manitoba Liberal Party. And I believe that at the end of the day, not only is she female, but she's also a very intelligent, articulate, she's competent, she's got heart. That's the type of leader that I believe is the right person for the right time. And women, it's important that women do elevate and aspire to these type of positions. I think she can inspire, Chrystia Freeland, future generations to show that as a woman, you can be prime minister, you can make a difference, and do the type of things that Canadians ultimately want to see.
If we talk about a carbon tax, what do you think? Because in last 2 years, the opposition leader, Pierre-Poilievre, his all the campaign go around carbon tax, axe the tax.
Absolutely. Inside the House of Commons in Ottawa, there was no one, absolutely no one, that supported and advocated for the price on pollution more than I have. And but one of the things that I have learned is Pierre Poilievre has been so effective at axing the tax and getting the slogan, and people across Canada just don't support the policy. And that's why I think through this leadership, the party is now in a position to listen to what Canadians have said, and we've done a lot of good things. But obviously, the carbon tax has not been a good thing from Canadians' perspective. So I suspect it will be gone. Whether it's Chrystia Freeland or any other Liberal leader virtually, or Pierre Poilievre, that the policy has not been accepted by Canadians. That message has been sent very clearly. And we'll have to wait and see in terms of if Chrystia comes on top or Mark Carney and what Mark Carney's position is on it. But I believe he's siding on getting rid of it too. So for all intents and purposes, it'll be gone in all likelihood before summer.
If we talk about an international platform,
Yes.
the first most favorite, most popular is Barack Obama. After that is Justin Trudeau. What happened within last 2 years? His popularity is going down and down.
I think it's a combination of things. Canadians as a whole look for change after a certain amount of time. And we've seen that time and time again.
Why he didn't take a step at the resignation step on the right time?
Well, I would argue ultimately that there's nothing wrong with the timing. He brought us through. This is the longest serving minority government in the history of Canada. We've now gone well over 3 years. We can elect a leader in 2.5 months. Then that leader, who then will become prime minister, will be afforded the opportunity to call an election or introduce a budget. Chances are the budget will get defeated and go into an election. I think that we've probably offended more of our opponents, whether the Conservatives or the New Democrats or the Bloc, because they want to define who our leader is. I think I have more confidence in Canadians and the election so that people will be able to do the contrast themselves. We don't need to be defined by opposition parties. Let Canadians make that decision. And I believe if you have someone like a Chrystia Freeland versus a Pierre Poilievre, the more people get to know Pierre Poilievre, I believe they're going to turn to Chrystia Freeland, because she has demonstrated, if you're concerned about trade, no member of Parliament has actually signed off on more trade agreements than Chrystia Freeland. And that is something that I think when you talk about Donald Trump and his tactics on trade, I have more confidence in Chrystia Freeland than I do any other member of Parliament, no matter what political party, including Mark Carney, even though he's not an MP today.
Today is January 18,
Yes.
and January 20th is first day of in his office, Donald Trump.
Yes.
And he's already declared he will impose 25% tax. Do you think that will happen? Or is it
I don't
political
think
agenda?
I don't think it will. Now, I don't know if it's because I'm very hopeful, optimistic that common sense will dictate that Donald Trump is hurting Americans by doing that. He is hurting not only Canada, but the USA. The USA is our greatest trading partner. We have a fantastic relationship. Over the years, we have developed as an economy and in many ways as socially. We have literally millions of people that travel back and forth between the two nations. Our economies are tied, and to impose those sorts of tariffs, he's actually punishing Americans too. And there are many American states that have more of a trade surplus with Canada, meaning they export more to Canada than they receive from Canada. So there's many American states that actually have that trading surplus.
If he wants to impose a tax, a lot of people are saying, why not on China? If he wants to improve the American economy, then he can put that tax on China and stop bringing those stuff in America.
You know, Varinder, you raise a very interesting point, right? If you take a look at democracy, allied countries around the world, those are the countries that we should be supporting in whatever ways we can. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways we can do that is through trade, right? To take down barriers, to try to lift the other countries. Why would you want to punish like-minded countries? China, Iran, these are countries in which we should be looking at and saying, well, in particular China, that's probably the best example. The amount of imports that we get from China is incredible. Both the United States and Canada.
In the whole world, I think the first importer is the U.S.
Oh, Donald Trump, why wouldn't he want to focus on that? I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. I'm very disappointed with the Premier of Alberta. Mm-hmm. Your listeners might have heard, we had a Team Canada approach. We had Conservatives and other political parties go to Ottawa premiers. They all said, yes, we need a Team Canada approach at taking on Donald Trump. Only the Premier of Alberta made the decision, to virtually not sign off with what it is that Team Canada approaches with Trump. And I understand she's been invited to that party he's having on, was it Tuesday?
Okay, so she already went to America at Palm, I think.
His retreat?
Donald Trump.
Retreat?
Yeah. So what do you think Alberta thinks? Because Alberta Premier, her action showing more words than her reaction. Because in few months, we will see the election. Do you think this is a good thing for any premier to step on the other side of the country? No,
I think it's wrong. I've always seen myself, I love my city of Winnipeg. I always look at Winnipeg as the city. It's a place in which I identify with. I'm comfortable in Winnipeg. But you know what? And my province, I love my province. But I'll tell you, I always put Canada first. And I think that as Canadians, it doesn't matter where you live in Canada. There's a certain expectation that you put Canada first. We are very fortunate and blessed to be able to call Canada our home. Compared to any other country in the world, I think we do exceptionally well. And when it comes time to step up and defend our nation on things like Donald Trump and his threats on tariffs, the responsible thing, and there is only one choice, and that's to get behind the Team Canada approach. And as a premier, I believe she does a disservice even to Albertans. I don't believe there's any excuse for it whatsoever.
This is our last segment. So do you think your party will win this election? Because lots of up and down within last 2-3 months, and after getting a new leadership, he or she, both are good candidate as per your knowledge. So do you think that's a good decision, or they will do good?
I think at the end of the day, hopefully within this leadership contest, going into a budget that we will be seen by more Canadians as a political party with a new leader that can provide the change that Canadians are looking for. I believe Canadians want change, first and foremost. And do I believe we can provide that change?
Do you think that change within Liberal, or they want change for other party like a Bloc Quebec, NDP, or PC?
We're going to find that out. I'm hoping that they will find that change from within. The best province, Ontario, had a provincial government, I think, for 35 years in a row. Now, I'm not suggesting the Liberals can be in Ottawa for 35 years in a row, but I can tell you that the Liberal Party is the only party that's been there since Confederation. And if you reflect on what Canada is as a nation today in comparison to any other country in the world, the Liberal Party has been the vehicle for Canadians to participate in, to vote for, to be candidates for, and Canada has done relatively well. Now, whether or not we are going to be able to be that change that Canadians want before the next federal election, there's only one way we're going to find out, and that's during the election. But I believe we've been afforded the opportunity because Justin Trudeau has made the decision to withdraw, which allows us to get a new leader. And hopefully that new leader will inspire people to say, look, it's better to have the Liberals than the Conservatives.
Sorry, I interrupt you. Do you think whoever is the next leader, they have enough time?
Absolutely. No doubt whatsoever in my mind. Because it's all about ideas, providing hope. It's about that leader being able to say, hey, I need a 4-year mandate in order to do X, Y, and Z. I want, and the best time to do that is during that 35 to 50-day election cycle. We will have an opportunity to present the budget. Who knows, maybe the NDP will change their mind and support the next budget, which would then allow us to have the election in October. That's possible. I don't think so, but it is possible. But either way, I believe that there's enough time for a new leader to be able to send a very strong message to Canadians.
Do you think Jagmeet Singh will support this next coming leader and give him a chance?
If I listen to what Jagmeet is saying, I think Mr. Singh's made the decision. He wants an election. He was very, very clear on it. Fingers crossed, you never know. Mm-hmm. If he feels that he can do more by working with our new leader, and our new leader wants to be able to continue on in a minority situation, well, then we'll continue for a few more months. For me, I'm going to be ready for an election. I'm planning on knocking on doors in April. Either way, I'm knocking on doors in April. So
if you're saying you are knocking on the door in last almost 15 years, you knocked every single door almost. So in every election, when election is on the corner, you say you will start a flight direct to India from Winnipeg every year, every time election time. Why not before election? Why are you not taking a step on the right time? You are in a federal.
Yes.
So you have all the information, you have all the assets, you have all the contacts. Why are you not taking a step on the right time? Because our community people, even a Filipino, they are saying he is just saying during the election time. When election over, he never talk about these things.
Well, it's actually not true. The first time it was actually raised with me in any tangible way, and we started to do petitions on it, was about 2 years ago. And it was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Gill, who is a relative of Nab Brar, who I am a member of Parliament today because of him, at least in good part, Nab Brar. The late Nab Brar. At the end of the day, the international flights not necessarily to India, but to Europe, is a high priority. In fact, just 3 or 4 days ago, I met with a group of individuals at a local restaurant where we talked about what is our strategy, what is the next step.
That's their feedback.
Yes.
That's also their feedback. They are saying he always during the election he promised he will get this flight for Europe. But after the election, it's a totally different.
One of the things that you always got to be careful of is sometimes you have individuals that try to mislead the reality or the facts. I have never, ever promised to get that flight. Never. Never would I. Because it's not the government of Canada or the province that makes that determination. It's the airline. So, for example, at the last discussion that we had, we included individuals like Mohinder Saran, We had Mintu, MLA from the Maples. We've had a couple of the community members, and we talk about, well, what would it take in order to get an international flight? And we had a healthy discussion on it, and we will continue to do what we can in terms of having a plan. So whether you're a member of Parliament, an MLA, or someone from the community as a whole, I believe that we need to move forward on it. Years ago, for example, we used to have a direct flight to Europe. Well, if we could have justified a direct flight to Europe years ago, then why don't we have one today? The bottom line is that it's about money. An airline has to believe that they can make money on that route. We have to be able to demonstrate it. It goes beyond even one community. It's who wants to go to France, to London, to Europe, anywhere in Europe, and how we can get a direct flight from Winnipeg to Europe.
Okay,
it's something in which I'm interested in.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
We already have direct flight from Vancouver. We already have a direct flight from Toronto. We already have a direct flight from Montreal. Recently, they announced they will start a direct flight from Calgary.
Yes.
Why not Winnipeg? Because in Winnipeg, we almost 60,000 is the Indian people. Yeah. Almost 100,000 is Filipino people.
Yes.
If we start up these kind of flights from connecting flight, let's say for Europe or Hong Kong or any Japan or closest Pacific country, so I think the travel time will drop to 38 hours to 20 hours if we have a connected flight to any country if we start from Winnipeg to Europe or to Pacific.
Yes.
What do you think that?
I think from a personal perspective, I believe it can be justified having the flight from Winnipeg to a city like London. I don't have a problem with that. The issue is you have to convince an airliner to do that, right? Who's ultimately responsible for making that happen?
But Air Canada
next to the airliner, it's the Winnipeg Airport Authority. It's Airport Authority, the people that run the airport, that have and should be motivated the most to get that direct flight. So what we have to do is we have to look for an airline. Like, interesting enough, Air India, I believe it's Air India, has a direct flight from London to Amritsar. If we got a direct flight from Winnipeg to London, then what would happen is that anyone that wants to go to Europe could board that flight to go to Europe, but a special group would actually be going to London in order to catch the Amritsar flight directly from London to Amritsar, and it's Air India that does it. So it's not Air Canada that's going to do it for us, or WestJet. It's likely going to be an airline like Air India. We have to say to an airline, come to Winnipeg, where you can have a direct flight from Winnipeg to London, and you will be able to, side skirt people from having to go to Toronto or to Calgary, because that's where they're going today. It's a competition between the airlines, and it's demonstrating to an airline, and it doesn't have to be Air Canada or WestJet, that they can make money by having that route. And I believe that we can do that. The disappointing thing is that it's not the Member of Parliament's responsibility or the MLAs. It's a joint thing, and the ones that should be leading it is the airport itself. The airport should be recognizing where the demand is, right? I'm taking it on, and it's only in the last year and a half, 2 years, because of one individual who brought it to my attention, and we've now done a petition.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Air Canada, WestJet, or any airline, they can start up to the UK or maybe in Europe, London.
Yes.
United Kingdom. Okay, now we go to the next question. I know this is a very deep. So what do you think? Election will happen what time? My
prediction is May 12.
May 12.
But no one really knows, right?
Okay.
But that's, I'm thinking May 12 is probably the most likely date, but we really don't know.
Okay.
We'll have a better sense of it at the end of March. Because at the end of March, by the time we get to March 25, we'll have a sense of what Mr. Singh is going to do with the NDP. And once he makes that decision, then we'll know whether or not we're going to be able to go past. And who knows, a new leader might want to get a new mandate and not wait for Mr. Singh.
Today you introduce your third generation politician. Is that
Yes.
Is he coming to politics or?
Well, I don't know about that, but it was really nice having Hudson, my grandson, over at the McDonald's. Even before Cindy was born, Hudson's mother was born, I've been going to the McDonald's on a weekly basis, and Cindy brought him by McDonald's today, which was a special treat to be able to see him there at the McDonald's.
Now he is public figure.
He is now officially a public. I think Cindy must have posted him. This is the first time he's appeared on my Facebook. Anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah. I saw the video on social media that she bring Hudson to McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah. And I appreciate the fact that for many community members and the community as a whole, every Saturday I go to the McDonald's on Keewatin Street as a way to, as you pointed out at the very beginning, you know, what's the difference between Ottawa, MP, and MLA? Being accessible is something that's always been important to me, and that's one of the reasons why we do what we do in terms of the McDonald's.
I forget to ask you about immigration.
My bread and butter, absolutely.
Bread and butter. What do you think will happen to international students?
What do I think or what do I hope? At the end of the day, I think international students have been subject to exploitation in a very real way, whether it's post-secondary facilities, provinces, immigration lawyers and consultants. And not all of them have been intentional bad players, but I would suggest to you that what we've had is many, literally thousands of individual international students that have been exploited, and we need to look at ways in which we can somehow allow them to be able to stay as long as we can, so that ultimately, as much as possible, they can become permanent residents. It is a challenge. It's a challenge because of the numbers of immigrants and the amount of abuse that has occurred, which has skyrocketed the number of international students over the last number of years. It's become a serious problem. My heart and my efforts are with those international students that have been exploited and trying to help them find a way.
Do you think it's a liberal failure for the immigration?
The biggest failure is not recognizing how big of a problem it was. A few years back when you had post-secondary facilities abusing it. We provide student visas for universities and and public or post-secondary facilities to allow them to complement their student body by using international students. You had these facilities going out doing massive recruitments, which skyrocketed to hundreds of thousands of international students. By the time the national bureaucracy caught up with the issue and then becomes an issue in Ottawa, when we have to start saying no to renewing working visas, that's when the problem started to really boil. And when that occurred, we had to slow down the system. And that's caused a great deal of issues.
Same thing with the housing market. We have a shortage of houses because every person wants their second or third property as a rental income, because there are a lot of immigrants coming to this country. Not immigrants, non-immigrant, which is student, work permit holder, or other. So do you think linking CRA with a mortgage fraud will be a best opportunity to control housing pricing and houses crisis?
Part of the fear is that we want housing to be homes for people, not as a financial mechanism where speculation causes the housing prices to go up and causes housing shortages. And that's what we've been witnessing. And that's been going on for a long time. And at the end of the day, how do you best deal with that issue? It's been a challenge for all levels of government. All levels of government have a role to play in ensuring that their provinces have housing. And it's not because of immigration. Like Manitoba is telling us they want more immigrants. We're having a challenge in terms of different provinces want different numbers. And that's
my question is, do you think linking mortgage banking with CRA is a good opportunity to control housing crisis?
Mortgage banking with?
Mortgage link up with CRA, because there are a lot of mortgage
CRA being?
Involved in, if you submit your document to any bank or lender, that goes to direct to CRA to verify the income, because a lot of people show fake income to get mortgage.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misconstrued the question. You're talking about Canada Revenue Agency.
Yeah.
I'm
Has
not-
to involve in every transaction for mortgage.
You want them involved?
Yeah, the people want it. Because a lot of people are saying their neighbor are getting a third or fourth house, they don't have that income, and they get all the paperwork done by third party that make a papers and get them a mortgage. I think the best time is to link up with the CRA, so everybody go through a filter.
I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that because there's all sorts of privacy issues, and I suspect the Privacy Commissioner of Canada would have some problems with that. It's an interesting thought. This is the first time I heard that. I don't know.
In the last budget, the Liberal already said that they will link up mortgage to CRA.
We go through CMHC, you get first-time home buyers grant. There might be some connections that I might not be aware of, but I would be very reluctant to say that Canada Revenue Agency and our banks collude to make the determination on whether or not someone is eligible to get a mortgage.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be very careful with that. Because there's all sorts of financial institutions, and having access to CRA, which is...
Not a CRA, they just send their number to CRA. CRA just verify them and send back the application. No, this is not true. So this
I don't
know.
know. That's something in which I wouldn't be... I'm not comfortable. This is the first time I heard of it.
Okay.
So I'm not comfortable in being able to give more of an opinion, other than the fact that I would be open to the idea, which means I don't necessarily support it, but I would be open to the idea to hear the pros and the cons. We have standing committees in Ottawa, and it might be a wonderful issue for the Finance Committee, Standing Committee, to investigate. And I would support that. I would support the Finance Committee, the Standing Committee on Finance, a group of members of Parliament,
But CBC
to look into the issue.
Marketplace, last year they did an investigation on couple of mortgage frauds that shows somebody bought a house for $1 million and their income is almost 400. That suppose their income supports only $400,000 to $500,000 house. But whoever is taking care of their financial, he make a false paper and get the approval. That's on a CBC Marketplace.
Now, one would think that due diligence would have been done by the institution that provided the finances, and that's why we have financial agencies like Equifax. I think it's Equifax?
Equifax, they just show you credit report, not a income source.
Yeah, that's true, but they would have to have some sort of a credit. You're looking for another step in which I don't think it would be responsible for any politician of any political stripe to come out and say, darn, that's a good idea, yes, I would do that. Because I think you need to look at the depths of the issues, both the pros and the cons. If you don't do that, you could be walking yourself into a fairly awkward position. On the surface, I think that could be some merit to the idea, but it has to be explored.
Okay, so we are closing this interview. Do you have any specific something to say about to our audience about your upcoming election or any message?
Going forward into the election, I'm anticipating that it'll likely be in May. By law, it can't be passed October. One of the things that have always been important to me is to put people first, whether it's dealing with healthcare issues, immigration issues, looking at ways in which we can improve the communities in which we live is something that means a great deal to me. That's one of the reasons why I try to be as accessible as I can as a member of Parliament. And I look forward to sharing with individuals different ideas. And at the end of the day, social media can be a wonderful thing, but there's also all sorts of interference and misinformation that's out there. Always be careful that you're not misinformed through social media or other outlets, especially if you're basing a decision on it. Make sure you talk to all candidates and hear what they have to say.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. ਇਹ ਸਨ ਜੀ ਕੈਵਿਨ ਲੈਮਰੂ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਵਿਨੀਪੈਗ ਨਾਰਥ ਤੋਂ MP ਨੇ, ਜੋ ਕਿ 2010 ਤੋਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਜਿੱਤ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਵੀ ਨੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸਿਟਿੰਗ MP ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚੰਗੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਤੇ, YouTube ਤੇ, Facebook ਤੇ ਜਾਓ ਤੇ ਇਮੈਜਿਨ TV ਸਰਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰੋ ਤੇ ਆਪਦੇ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਕਰੋ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਗਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਈਏ। ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਨੂੰ। ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ। ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।